Morning, everybody. So yes, I think we've got a slide, hopefully. We're continuing with Amazed by Jesus, and today we're talking about Jesus gives second chances. That's right, Jesus gives second chances. Thank goodness for that. So, has anyone ever played Monopoly? Has anyone ever fell out playing Monopoly? Or is that just me? For those who know me, oh, by the way, I'm Tina. For those that don't know me, for those that do know me, you probably know that I am pretty competitive. Probably not as competitive as Steve Newcomb, but still very competitive. I played Monopoly mainly when I was young with my brother Pete, and I would always be determined to win every time we started that game, and it's a very, very long game, by the way. You can be playing that game for hours. You can go from being the richest player and then boom, you land on Mayfair with a hotel and you're almost bankrupt. So almost destitute, I would try and build some more money up. I thought I just need to go past go a few more times. I'm making my way around the board. And then I land on the chance card. Yes, this is what I need. Got a second chance. Keep me in the game. Got to beat my brother. I really need this because I'm coming up to Mayfair and he's got 3 hotels now. And on Park Lane, and he's smirking. And if I land on that, I'm done. I'm out. Game over. So I turn the card over, turn my chance card over, and what do I get? Go to jail. Go directly to jail. Do not pass go, and do not collect 200. It is not the type of second chance I was looking for. So life can be a bit of a mixture of a game of Monopoly, snakes and ladders, with a hefty amount of frustration added into the mix for good measure. I'm sure that all of us will have done things that we really regret, where we well and truly messed up and thought, I wish I could just go back and change that. I know I've definitely been in situations like that, where I could have wished I could have changed something or said something differently, thinking if only I can turn back the clock, rewind it, do it all over again. But as I mentioned, today's subject is Jesus gives us second chances, but how do we really know that's true? If you look at the Bible, there are so many, it's just filled with examples in the Bible of God and Jesus giving second chances. Everyone knows the story, I would imagine, of David and Goliath, right? According to the scriptures, David was a man after God's heart. He went from a lowly shepherd to then go on and defeat Goliath, and then eventually he became the king of Israel. But unfortunately, all the power went to his head. He committed adultery with Bathsheba, and when she became pregnant, he even tried to cover it up, and he arranged to have her husband killed by putting him on the front line in battle. At that time, adultery and murder would have been capital offences, so David should have been killed. But David broke down and repented to God, and God gave him a second chance. He gave him another opportunity to be king, to be a husband, and to be a father. You see, our God is a God of love, a God of grace, and he wants the best for his children and those who believe in him. He really, really does. Another example of God giving second chances, again, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is the story of Jonah. So God spoke to Jonah, and he asked him to go to Nineveh to preach to the people and tell them to stop doing all the evil they were doing and to repent. But Nineveh was actually the enemy of Jonah's country, Israel. So the last place on earth Jonah wanted to go was Nineveh. I'm sure Jonah would have probably called this mission impossible. So Jonah rebelled from doing what God asked and tried to escape from God. He tried running away. Well, actually, he tried sailing away on a ship, but there was a terrible storm. Jonah knew that God had caused the storm. He definitely knew God had caused the storm. The boat was being battered so badly by the storm it was about to break apart. So in order to save the sailors and the crew, Jonah asked the sailors to throw him overboard to die. But Jonah didn't drown because God sent a fish, which we presume was a whale, because it would have to be a big fish that swallowed him up. And then Jonah prayed to God and thanked God who rescued him. And God caused the fish to return Jonah to the dry land and vomited up, safe and sound. Sounds a bit gross. But Jonah then obeys God, finally undertakes his mission. He goes to Nineveh. He warns the people they must confess their evil deeds to God. They don't kill him, which is good. Otherwise, they confess their evil deeds to God, and God doesn't destroy the nation. The people obeyed Jonah, so God forgave the people in Nineveh. Jonah fulfilled his mission accomplished. What we learn here is that God didn't reject Jonah despite him trying to run away. He didn't reject him despite him not doing what God wanted him to do. And despite his disobedience, he gave him a very important task to do. He chose him to do this task. And when he tried running away and literally got into deep water, he rescued him and clearly gave him a second chance. Earlier in my life, I used to travel quite a lot with work, and I had to go places that I didn't know how to get to. So I don't know if all of you will remember this, because there's quite a few people that look younger than me here, a lot younger. But we used to have big, massive maps. We used to have to try and plan the route. I think there's the next slide with... I got one of these. I got a sat-nav once, and it was just like... all my Christmases had come at once, because I thought I don't need to be panicking and looking and trying to find and work out the best route. So when I got my sat-nav, it was really, really good. But have you ever been in a car with the sat-nav on? You know where exactly you're going, but there's an obstruction on the road. And Rob was speaking last week, and he was saying that he hadn't had the updates. And what usually would happen is your sat-nav would reroute you if you've got all the updates. But if you haven't, then sometimes what you have to do is actually drive in a completely different direction to where you're going to until it actually reroutes you. And you head off, it reroutes you, and before you know it, you're back on track. Like Jonah, we might not always think that we're following God's plan for our life. We all make mistakes. We're all human. And from time to time, there are bumps in the road. We take an alternate route, the route we want to go. We take shortcuts. We steer away from God. But as long as we keep switching our focus back to Jesus, he will always reroute us back in the right direction. So if we look at another example from the Bible of second chances and look at John 8, verse 1 to 11. So it says, Jesus returned to the Mount of Olives, but early the next morning he was back again at the temple. A crowd soon gathered, and he sat down and taught them. As he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. Teacher, they said, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say? They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer. So he stood up again and said, all right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. Then he swooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest until Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, where are your accusers? Didn't one of them condemn you? No, Lord, she said. And Jesus said, " neither do I. Go and sin no more." This passage shows Jesus is more than happy to give us a second chance. He didn't condemn the woman. He says, "Didn't even one of them condemn you?" And Jesus said, "Neither do I." He doesn't condemn us, but he does want us to learn from our mistakes. And that is why he said, "Go and sin no more." I think one of the most amazing examples of Jesus giving a second chance is the story of his relationship with one of his disciples, Peter. This passage is taken from one of the occasions when Jesus appears to his disciples after he has been resurrected. And it's titled, "Jesus Reinstates Peter." And it says, "When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, 'Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?' 'Yes, Lord,' he said. 'You know that I love you.' Jesus said, 'Feed my lambs.' Again, Jesus said, 'Simon, son of John, do you love me?' He answered, 'Yes, Lord. You know that I love you.' Jesus said, 'Take care of my sheep.' The third time he said to him, 'Simon, son of John, do you love me?' Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him a third time, 'Do you love me?' He said, 'Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you.' Jesus said, 'Feed my sheep.'" So if you can imagine the scene a few days prior to this, when Jesus had been arrested and facing death, Peter, who had said that he would lay down his life for Jesus, instead betrayed Jesus by denying knowing him 3 times. And Jesus was crucified the next morning. Following the resurrection, Jesus then appears to his disciples as they're fishing and causes their nets to be filled so that they can share a breakfast together on the beach. This takes place on the shores of Galilee, the very first place Jesus met Peter, where he uttered the infamous words, "Follow me." But what I find really interesting is that Jesus asks Peter whether he loves him 3 times, the same amount of times that Peter denied knowing Jesus. I believe that Jesus asked Peter to affirm his love 3 times for Peter's benefit, to emphasize the importance of Peter's love to Jesus and to help him feel confident that he was a true disciple of Christ. But Jesus asked Peter, sorry, just move this a bit away a bit. Jesus asked Peter, does that still sound okay? Yeah. Jesus asked Peter, "Take care of my sheep, feed my sheep." Jesus was often referred to as the Good Shepherd, and people referred to his flock or his sheep. So it's believed that Jesus was actually asking Peter, the one that had betrayed him and denied him, he was asking Peter to take care of his people and his followers. This would have obviously been such a great honour and very clearly shows that Jesus gives incredible second chances. Jesus knows everything. Jesus knew even before Peter betrayed him that he would do that. He predicted it during the Last Supper. He even told him, he said to Peter, "Truly, truly, I tell you, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." So despite what is referred to as the ultimate betrayal of all time, Jesus goes on to bestow a great honour to Peter and still uses him to build his kingdom. In fact, Peter was actually recognised in the early Christian church as the leader of the 12 disciples following Jesus' ascension to heaven. But why? Why though? But why? Why would Jesus bestow this great honour on Peter after his deep betrayal? It just doesn't make sense. It's because Jesus knows all things. Even Peter says, "You know all things. You know how much I love you." He could see Peter's heart. He could see his brokenness. He knew how deeply sorry and upset Peter was. He was more like a brother to Jesus, and he did what he did out of fear that he would lose his own life. Jesus can see into our hearts. He can see our past actions, and if we simply bring all our burdens and mistakes to him and are truly sorry, he forgives us and gives us that second chance. The fact is, Jesus knew we wouldn't get it right the first time round. He probably knew we wouldn't get it right the second time round either. He knew we would all sin, and that's why he died for us. And the fact that Jesus died for us is all the proof we should know that Jesus gives second chances. Jesus is in the business of giving second chances. He does it because his love for us and because he's full of grace. And he wants us to have his peace. Jesus teaches us he never gives up on anyone. No one is a lost cause. We should try and do the same and model his behaviour. But what is so special about Jesus giving second chances? You've probably heard lots of people say, go on, give them a second chance, or everybody deserves a second chance. But I wonder where that concept actually came from. I'm sure it would have come from the greatest role model to ever walk this earth, Jesus. Throughout his earthly ministry, Jesus constantly gave second chances and uttered the compelling words, "Follow me," to those who many would be classed as unworthy, misfits, failures, outcasts. Jesus freely gives second chances. And if our goal is to be more like Jesus, we need to give second chances too. The Lord's Prayer says, "Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us." God wants us to give second chances to other people, the people that have upset and offended us, rejected us, to free us of any bitterness, so that we can live life and live life to the full and have his peace, have peace of mind, so that we can live and enjoy the life that he's planned for us, his children. Life can be very challenging. Do you feel like you've messed up? Are you currently approaching a second chance scenario? Have you ever decided to take a detour from what God has planned for you? Or are you trying to escape what he's asking you to do, like Jonah? Are you stuck in a rut, in a state of deja vu? Here we go again. Do you need to give someone a second chance and forgive them? Are you making the same mistakes over and over? What we sometimes actually overlook is the person we might need to forgive is actually ourselves. You might think that you've messed up beyond measure, that you're not worthy, and why would God bother with you? Why would God care about you? Why would God love you? And there's the next slide, please. You might even feel like this stained white t-shirt. And I spill stuff quite a lot, actually. My husband would tell you that. You know the feeling when you spill something down you and you think, I better get that stain out. I better get it out right away, because if I don't, it's going to soak right through. But then you leave it too long. You think that ugly stain is never going to come out. So you think, I'm just going to leave it. It's not going to come out. Absolutely nothing's going to get that out. But worst of all, it's going to be there. Everybody's going to see it. And it's never going to look and feel like new again. It's completely ruined. Well, I've got news for you. That's simply not true. In fact, it's a lie, actually. Jesus can wash you whiter than snow. But more than that, he'll help teach you how to avoid making the same mistakes and how to avoid making any stains in the future. We don't just get one shot to impress him or one chance to get things right. If that's the case, we've all failed. We might as well give up, go home. But no, Absolutely nothing you've done is too bad, and it's definitely never too late. We can never be too far gone, whether it's a behaviour or attitude issue, a relationship problem, an addiction, a bad habit. It might even be something from years ago, a skeleton in your cupboard that keeps popping out, and it's got a strong hold on your life. Don't let that stain define you. Psalm 103 verse 12 says, "He has removed our sins as far as east is from west." They couldn't be any further removed. You might have been a Christian for years, but you still feel that baggage from the past weighing you down, but you're definitely not meant to feel like that, and God certainly doesn't want you to feel like that. You can get past your past. You can get past your past. And when you become a Christian, anything bad in your life, anything you've ever done wrong is forgiven. Not just forgiven, it's forgotten. And not just forgotten, it's buried. Completely forgotten forever. You have a completely fresh start. I like to think I'm generally a positive person. Hopefully some of you will say that about me. But it's a minister mocking me. Anyway, the other morning I got up, I felt really fed up, just really fed up. Absolutely downbeat, miserable, and I literally felt I'd got a black cloud hanging over me. I just felt I've got so much to do. I didn't know how I was going to get everything done. It probably sounds really trivial, but I was just so fed up. I'd got work, meetings, deadlines, accounts, shopping, cleaning, cooking, and then obviously I'd got to get my sermon done as well. But I went in the bathroom to brush my teeth, and I was feeling like this, really gloomy. And by the time I'd finished brushing my teeth, honestly, I thought I was going to be in that mood all day, all week. But by the time I'd finished brushing my teeth, my attitude had completely changed. And I was upbeat, I was happy, and God had just really helped me. The situation, nothing had changed. The work hadn't changed. I'd got the same amount to do, but the brain fog had vanished. And I realised that nothing was such a big problem that I was making out. Everything was achievable. I just needed to think about today, not everything for the week. It's like God had patted me on the shoulder and says, "You've got this." A completely new perspective on the situation. So do you need a new outlook? Or maybe you feel like you need a complete fresh start. Maybe you feel like your life is a complete mess. You might be in debt. You might feel unworthy. You might feel defeated, not able to focus or know where to start. You start one thing and never get anything finished. Problems are piling up. Your life feels cluttered. Maybe you're struggling in your marriage, or you're having problems with family relationships. God can definitely give you a different perspective and a fresh start and a new outlook. Next slide, please. And if the band want to come up, please. So if anything I've said does resonate with you, then please come up for prayer at the end. Like I say, it might not be something that you're facing at the minute. It might be something, from the past. It might be that you don't feel like you're forgiven from past mistakes from years ago. Whatever it is, when the band starts playing and at the end, just go up to somebody or come up to somebody you feel comfortable with and ask them to pray for you. And don't miss an opportunity to be prayed for. Jesus doesn't only offer second chances. There are no 3 strikes and you're out. He offers chance after chance after chance. You're never too far gone that God can't redeem you, restore you, forgive you, and give you a second chance, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 10th, 20th, 100th chance. As many as you need. As long as you're sincere and you're truly sorry, there is no limit on his love and his forgiveness. He is more than happy to wipe the slate clean. He's the King of chances. And he wants you to feel his peace. So if you've messed up, just bring it to him. And just say he's truly sorry. Don't waste what he's prepared to give you, and don't waste the opportunity to have complete peace of mind. But let's try and learn from our mistakes and be better in the future. And then don't be surprised when he turns your life around for his glory and use you in ways you could simply never imagine for his kingdom. Thank you.